Okay, and I believe now, committee, we are live streaming. So, Councillor Pauls, it's 8 a.m. Whenever you're ready, we can begin.
Thank you and welcome everyone. I would like to call the BIA Advisory Committee meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during the committee meetings. I will do the roll call. Jennifer Mattern, Lancaster BIA.
Here.
Rachel Braithwaite, Barton Village BIA.
Present.
Christine Geisler, Concession Street BIA.
Here.
Carrie Jarvie, Downtown Hamilton BIA.
Here.
Lisa Anderson, Dundas BIA.
Yes,
Susie, is she here? Okay,
yeah,
Susie Braithwaite, International Village BIA.
Here.
Michael Seibern, King West BIA.
I don't believe he's present, Councillor.
Heidi Vanderkwalk, Lock Street BIA.
I haven't seen her yet either.
Okay, Bender Chung, Main West Esplanda BIA.
And I haven't seen him either.
Emily Burton, Ottawa Street BIA.
And I don't believe she's yet here either, no.
Susan Penny, Waterdown BIA.
I'm here.
And Tracy McKinnon, Westdale Village and Stony Creek BIA.
Here. Oh,
Great.
sorry, Tracy. Hi, I see you now.
Tracy's here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Changes to the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
And can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented?
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Susie.
Okay, nobody opposes. Thank you. And it's carried. Declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? Let's move on. Approval minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a mover and a seconder, please, to approve the minutes of February 9, 2021 meeting as presented?
Moved by Susie, seconded by Tracy.
Okay, thank you. Nobody opposes and it's carried. Staff presentation. Film office update. Kimberly Adroves, the Senior Project Manager of Film, and Sarah Rock, the Business Development Officer. Create Industries are here with the update on the film office. Welcome both.
So through the chair, sorry to interrupt. It's Angela from the Clerk's Department. So I believe Kim is having some trouble logging on this morning. So if we would be okay to move to item 9.2, which is the infection prevention and control update.
Yes.
So if I could just have a motion just to move it.
Okay, can I have a motion, a seconder there?
Perfect.
Okay.
Jennifer and Lisa, thank you. And
Thank you.
And if you want
and
to,
nobody opposes it, so we're going to move to item 9.2, infection prevention and control update. Dr. Doug Sider, public health physician, and Lakshman Nandi, manager of the infection prevention and control, are here with an update on infection prevention and control. Welcome both.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Chair, is it okay if I give some updates to the committee, please? Because I think it's quite pertinent to understand where we are in terms of the pandemic. So good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be back again. I wish I was coming with better news, but there is some over the horizon, very good news if we can get through the next 2 to 3 months. As you probably are aware, and we've been saying this for the past couple of weeks at least, we are now clearly into wave 3 of the pandemic, and that's indicated by all sorts of measures. Our cases, our weekly cases per 100,000 are now over 100. Last year in December at that time is when the province moved us into the gray lockdown zone. As well, our percent positivity, the number of people testing positive for COVID virus is increasing, sort of quite markedly. The reproductive rate, the number of new cases that are generated from each infection continues to go up. We're seeing a number of outbreaks increasing. What's, however, different this time, thanks to the efforts of vaccinating residents and staff in long-term care facilities and retirement homes, is that we're seeing minimal outbreak activity in these facilities. And I think many of you will recall back in the November, December, January period, we were facing an onslaught of serious illness spread, hospitalizations and death in those populations. So a very good news story and a powerful testimony to the effectiveness of vaccination is that we have essentially safeguarded our populations, our most vulnerable elderly populations in long-term care facilities and in retirement homes. So we're still, however, seeing lots of other outbreaks, and it's no surprise really. What's worrisome is the number of school outbreaks that we've been experiencing and workplace outbreaks and other congregate settings such as shelters, group homes, etc. So our situation is worsening. We're clearly in wave 3. What's it going to look like, and what will the driving forces for wave 3 be? One, and again, I should think this is no surprise to any of you who are following the media, we're seeing increasing percentages of our cases due to the COVID-19 variants. These viruses that have mutated subtly or not so subtly and are more transmissible and potentially causing more severe illness, hospitalizations, and death. So right now, about 30% of our positive cases are due to the variants that have been circulating in Ontario for the past several months. And folks, this is going to climb. Look at the variants. They're the bullies. They're going to push, the previous, what we call classic COVID, out of the neighborhoods, out of the playgrounds, etc. By probably the latter part of May, we'll see that most of the cases, if not all of the cases that we're documenting in Hamilton, are due to the variants. So you've got that reality that's underpinning this marked increase in the number of cases that we're seeing over the last several weeks. Now, the good news is that, those variants, especially the primary variant that we're dealing with, the UK variant, still seems to be very responsive to vaccinations, because that's the other thing. While we've got, on one hand, we've got the variants growing in prominence and really pushing infection into and through our community, we've got increasing numbers of people that are getting access to, that are being vaccinated. So you've got force and counterforce. And that's some of the good news, because the more supplies of vaccines we get, the more vaccines we get into arms, we increase pretty markedly the protection, what's called the herd immunity, throughout our community. What is uncertain at this point in time, unlike wave 2, and we all remember wave 2, we were on the steady upslope, we went into gray, the province realizing how widespread COVID was and how every community was being impacted by increasing cases, outbreaks, pressures on hospitals, etc. The province instituted, back on December the 26th, the province-wide shutdown with the stay-at-home order. When we look at what we've learned, and as painful as these measures are, and you folks live with the economic, the social, the community pain every day, I'm not minimizing that. The thing is that lockdowns, shutdowns work. When we look at what happened back in December, January, February, clearly the provincial decision to impose a lockdown with a stay-at-home order stopped the rise in cases and put us on the downslope, okay? So right now, we don't know what the province is going to do. I think all of us who have been following the media, there doesn't seem to be the same political appetite to consider the same very abrupt, very widespread very severe lockdown, shutdown with the stay-at-home orders. We're going to have to see what happens over the next few weeks. The trouble is, if there's not a lockdown with a stay-at-home order, and this is something that we learned lots about. We know that these things work, and we have got a good sense as to why they work. If the province, for political or economic reasons, decides against a broader multiple region shutdown with a stay-at-home order, what's going to happen is wave 3 is probably going to be higher than wave 2, and it's going to be longer than wave 2. So if you think of, wave 2 was like that, wave 3 is going to be more of that shape. So I know this is not news that you want to hear, because the last thing that many of your businesses want to hear is that there may be another lockdown or a more severe shutdown with stay-at-home order in the works. But if that happens, the extent and the duration of the pain that we're going to have to face as a community is going to be a lot less than if the province says, well, Hamilton, you've reached all of the measures that we need to have to put you in the gray zone, and without a doubt, that imposes restrictions, that imposes social, economic, business hardships, etc. But if that's where we end up, and if that's where we stay without more severe lockdown, stay-at-home orders, things are going to drag on, and they're going to drag on through April, May, through June, probably into July. If there is the political will to impose a lockdown with a stay-at-home order, probably we would see a much shorter, less high curve, and probably by the latter part of May and into June, we're getting back out of this into the red control zone and have some hope, going on into June and beyond to get to orange and lower levels. Because folks, the extent to which we can get through this wave 3, and especially the extent to which vaccine supplies increase, we get more and more vaccines into arms, we get higher and higher percentages of our community with protection from the vaccine, that's going to be the durable power that's going to mean that in all probability, wave 3 is the last wave that we're going to have to go through. We're not going to see a wave 4. We might see a slight swell sometime, in the fall perhaps, but it's not going to be a wave 4. So I know this is not great news, but we know what works. We know what's before us. What we have now that we didn't have throughout wave 2 is we've got vaccinations, and we've got growing numbers of people getting vaccinated. So maybe I'll stop here because I wanted to give this overview. We really want to hear from you folks, answer questions, etc. Latchman is very up to date with all of the changes, the recent regulatory changes that have given more openness, especially in the red control zone or the gray zone, to businesses such as restaurants, either in the red control zone, greater indoor dining numbers, or in the gray zone, greater opportunity, for example, for patio structures to be set up and operate, etc. But I'll stop here because we really want to, Latchman, I don't know if you have any comments that you'd like to make, at this point, but we really want to hear, sort of from you folks, what you're grappling with, because, and as Rachel, I hope, has been sharing, we're all aware of the variants. We've done a lot of work recently to try to say, what do these growing percentages of COVID variants of concern, as they call these mutated viruses, what does it mean from businesses, from a business perspective, et cetera? What do you need to do, sort of more vigorously? These are the things that we've been trying to work on, but I'll stop talking here, and I will, love to hear your concerns, your questions.
So thank you, Dr. Sider. We're going to open it up for questioning. Anybody have question for Dr. Sider? Christine.
Hi, Dr. Sider. So last night on the news, they were talking about one of the factors that can influence the decision for further restrictions is hospital capacity, and they were talking a little bit about how some of the hospital beds, intensive care beds occupied in Hamilton, are by residents of Peel and Toronto because of load balancing with the hospitals. Is that Is that a factor that can potentially impact Hamilton getting locked down if we're taking on patients from neighboring municipalities?
Great question, Christina. Yeah, I mean, there is this regional load sharing, and that can put stresses on the hospital, but up to a certain point. If a hospital doesn't have a bed to take, a seriously ill patient from Peel or from Toronto or from other neighboring jurisdictions, that can't happen. So yes, that has been a factor, because what we have to realize, as you correctly point out, is that not only do the hospitals have to deal with our own residents and the severe consequences, if they happen to be doing a reasonably good job, if they've managed to hold on to some surplus capacity, they can't hold that, to, keep surgeries, keep elective surgeries open, et cetera. At this point in time, if there's a critical care bed that's open and somebody else needs it from another community, they'll use that. But you're right, what that does is that adds to the pressures on our hospitals, what they're able to manage. It's one of the factors that allows that the province is using to determine whether we should stay in red or go to gray. So it's not the only factor, okay? It's not that regional load management is pushing us to a point where the province is going to say, gosh, look at your hospitals. We've created part of the problem through load management. Because of the stresses of the hospitals, we're going to have to put you in gray. It's probably many other factors. It's the cases, the incidence of cases, how that's rising. It's the outbreaks. It's also public health capacity. We're struggling keeping up with the volume of cases and contacts, et cetera. So it's a whole series of factors. That's one of them, but we're not going to be tipped into gray lockdown just because of the hospital's pressures.
Now, just a second question, and this is associated, I'm just putting on my BIA hat here for a moment. So is there any suggestions that you can offer in how we guide or advise our businesses that are looking to set up patios to help them with extra seating outside? Because there's a cost, there's an effort associated with that, particularly if businesses are looking to construct their own, and if to balance that with the risk that they might not actually be able to use it if we do go into a lockdown. So how do we coach our businesses properly with that?
Lashman, I'll let you, that's a great question. I'm not trying to duck it. I'm thinking that Lashman's probably got more details on that. So do you want to take that initially, Lashman, please?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question, Christina. And through the chair, I'll comment that, it is one of those things that when we do talk about changes in the regulation or what might happen, there is that uncertainty of where we might end up. But if businesses are looking at directions of how to construct a patio, what sizes would be permitted, there are some requirements in the regulation for them to be constructed of a certain size and meet our local bylaw requirements. So I would be happy to connect back with our bylaw team to reach out to them and provide some additional information to this group around what construction size limits would have to be made. But a lot of this information is summarized on our COVID webpage, and I can follow up and share that information with the group as well. But if we're looking for information on the restrictions on sizing, meeting our local bylaw, and building department requirements, I will engage with those two departments and bring that information back to you.
It's not so much that I think we have all the documentation and we're aware of the policies on how to set up a patio. It's just balancing the advice for a business to go down this road if Hamilton locks down, right? Like, I mean, it's more that. And I know that nobody can really give a concrete answer with that because we just don't know where we're going. But I just kind of wanted to put it out there that that's where we're stuck, because we've got businesses that have been obliterated for this past year, rightfully so. And now that there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel, the city has made concessions with foregoing the cost of permits for patios, which is great. So they're getting excited and they're investing this money and time and potentially setting up patios that they might not even be able to use. I guess it's just not really a question, more just a statement.
But no, it's important because, again, through you, Madam Chair, if I can just add a bit to that, Christina, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I saw the regulations that came out amended over the weekend, frankly, and I'll speak bluntly, I thought it was quite cruel. For one thing, expanding the indoor dining capacity. Well, probably by this Friday, folks, we're going to be moving from red to gray. If we are not moved by the province to gray this Friday, then I will be shocked given, what our metrics are looking like. So look at a restaurant that heard last weekend that you can open to greater numbers of indoor dining, and yet it may last only a week before once again we're in gray. In all probability, that will mean no indoor, you can use patios. What we don't know is that because gray is one thing, lockdown. I'd like to distinguish that from what happened on December the 26th and beyond, which was more a black shutdown period of time. What we don't know is that if you construct a patio and you can use it during gray, if the province decides, no, we need to do what we did back in December the 26th and beyond, the large areas need to shut down with stay-at-home orders. What happens if they say at that point in time that patios can no longer be used? And we don't know. We don't have any indication. If the province were to say, if you move into gray, you'll stay in gray until we decide that things have improved enough, then there might be a business logic. If a business can look and say, we could be in gray for a month, 2 months, 3 months, but we're getting into much better weather. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe the business case for doing that could be more persuasive, but we still don't know, because we know what's involved in gray. But as we saw last December, the province is keeping in its pocket the possibility of a more severe, restrictive shutdown with stay-at-home order. And if that's the case, I don't know. As I said, we don't really know what the province would do and whether a patio would be rendered. Nope, sorry, you can't even use a patio. If we go into beyond gray into a black shutdown stage.
I heard on the media as well some talk of Toronto going into like a gray light. Did that happen? I never heard anything else about that, where it was still gray, but they were still massaging and still allowing for a little bit like outdoor dining. Did they end up doing that? Does anybody know?
I'm unaware. Elatchman, do you have any intelligence on that?
So I think what Christina might be referring to is perhaps some proposals that are coming out around allowing outdoor dining, so patio dining, in gray zone, and then allowing personal service settings to reopen, which have remained closed in the gray zone. So those are changes that have been yet to be made to the regulation, but we'll likely see just based on the media coverage as well, and what's coming out of those coverage is that perhaps personal service settings will be allowed to be reopened in gray, but that's not in the regulation as yet.
Okay, thank you. Yes, who's next? Jennifer is our.
I think Susan was next. I'll wait my.
Oh, Susan. Okay, go ahead, Susan.
So, beyond the patios, I think that the real frustration that's going to come out from our businesses, and I don't know, I don't want to be the person that's telling them not to go ahead when they've been given permission from the government to open wider. But when our restaurants are gearing up now, that they've been allowed to, increase their capacity indoors, they're now hiring line cooks. They're bringing their staff back. They're upping their inventory. And, if you open a keg of beer and then you get shut down, all that beer is garbage. Their inventory that they're ordering in is garbage. I have gift stores that have all their product coming in for Easter sales. And in the back of my mind, I'm hearing what everybody's saying. And I know that in all likelihood, they're going to get this shut down again. But, to put us in the position where we have to say to these businesses that haven't been able to operate fully for a year now, that they've been given the permission, but don't take it. Don't follow it, because you're going to be in bigger trouble with having to lay your staff off again. And these guys are looking at this stuff as like a glimmer of hope that they can get back to some sense of normalcy. And it's going to cost them. It's not just the cost of them shutting down, because they've managed during that. They know how to kind of bring things down, but it's the increased costs that they're going to face by bringing in their inventory and then having to throw all that stuff out again and lay their staff off again. And I understand where we're all coming from a public health point of view, but I'm hearing the fatigue in our business owners. We're feeling the fatigue. And I have 20-year-olds, and I just can't see that there isn't going to be at some point, I think all of our businesses and most people have been like, okay, this is what we have to do. We're going to buckle down. We're going to do it. But I feel like we're getting to a wall where people are going to say, no, not doing it. And I just like, I don't know how, I think we're in a very precarious position because we're supposed to protect our businesses by giving them best advice and letting them know what's coming. At the same time that it's putting us in a position of telling a business that has an opportunity to, you know, potentially get back on a revenue stream that will support their business, and we're sort of advising them, don't do it.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have an answer to the dilemma, Susan. I'm sorry. You described it so eloquently, you know, the dilemma that you face and your businesses face. I guess the only thing to say is that, and this may be scant solace, you know, we're not in November, we're not in December, you know, we're in March going into April. There is an end in sight. You know, this is in all probability, and I'm quite convinced about this. This is the last major dislocation that we're going to have to go through. We're not going to have to face this again. We'll get through and out of wave 3, and I can't see us getting back to a point, you know, where we're looking at a wave 4. So I don't have much better an answer to you, because the dilemma of how much do I invest for what might be a very short period of time, and actually the costs of that investment may not have been borne by any benefits to my business until we're through wave 3, and I can more confidently and certainly you know, plan for what my business go forwards are going to be. That's an inadequate answer to, you know, a very significant economic dilemma you're facing. I'm sorry, I don't have much better than that.
Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer?
Mine's along the similar lines, if I can touch on, I think what Christina was getting at. I have heard that Toronto was open for patios in the gray zone. So I think that was maybe the gray light where they opened that opportunity up. So looking to see, is that a possibility for ours? I do have a specific question that kind of ties into my members. I was just about to launch an announcement for what we call our virtual egg hunt, which would be only households only, static stickers in the windows, and having the families at their leisure over 2 weekends and after school be able to wander. But I didn't want to launch that if we are going into a gray zone and then possibly into a further lockdown. So sort of coming up with a plan B. Can I merge plan A and plan B? Looking for a little bit of advice on that. And it was difficult. So I have a large group of businesses participating. And when I told them I had to pull back, and they're like, well, why? What is your concern? I'm the one delivering the news. It looks like we're going into, you know, there's a good chance of gray zone. And I think before telling, if there was a way we could have announced to them that, you know, increased capacity into the restaurants, the ability for the patios to also have had that knowledge. Bear in mind that this, you know, ship may be coming down your path, because I think a lot jumped on the trajectory, as they should have. With that light at the end of the tunnel, we can start bringing people in, but they didn't have some of the knowledge until I'm, again, as what Susan was saying, being the bearer of bad news. I wish the two had been simultaneously, so they could be, do we wait off a week versus starting it? So that's my little bit of feedback, but also could you provide me with some direction? Should I'm able to go to the paper today to print? Do we feel it's a safe enough risk without getting people excited and then having to retract and pull things down, or some direction? That would be greatly appreciated.
Again, Latchman, I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong. The changes to the regulations, patios are permitted if we're in lockdown. Okay, so those, and this might be what you're thinking about, the, you know, sort of the gray light. Patios will be permitted. I just, as I said, you know, I'm not certain whether what we learned from gray lockdown in wave 2 is that it didn't work. It slowed things a bit, but what changed the whole dynamic of wave 2 was the shutdown. where everything, remember on December the 26th, we were told to shut down, nothing but essential travel, stay at home as much as possible, etc. That's the unknown factor, Jennifer, in the equation. We don't know if several weeks into lockdown and, into gray lockdown, the province might say it's not enough, it's not working, as we did back in December, bang, here's much more restrictive. And we don't know what the shape of that will look like. At that point in time, would they say, sorry about the opportunity for patios? We can't permit them any longer. This is what's not known. So I would think looking at when we get into gray, and as I said, I'm quite certain if we're not in gray by this Friday, we'll be highly surprised, because it's only a matter of time looking at the way our data, but when you're in gray, you've still got some opportunities. You can still have patio, and other, sort of measures of business activity, et cetera. So if you're wondering about, can I still do this if we're in gray? I don't see a reason why not. The big question is a shutdown, that gray's not enough. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks into gray, the province said, no, it's not working. We need to do what we did last Boxing Day. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, just to confirm
Chair.
through the chair, so you feel if I launch this, that having this weekend and then Easter weekend, most likely will be in that gray light, if we want to call it, and then a shutdown would most likely occur after, but we'd have more of a chance to go ahead with it. I just hate bringing everyone's spirits up doing something and then 3 days later having to post everywhere, lockdown, pull it all down. So
yeah, no, I think you're safe to do that. Again, sort of, I wish I was better at reading the political tea leaves, but I suspect that we'll be in lockdown for a while, and we may not go to a shutdown. The province may say we just can't put up with the economic and social hardship that a shutdown versus a lockdown, the gray, sort of zone entails. So I would think this weekend and next weekend, I don't know if you should accept my assurances as such, because if I'm wrong, then you're the folks that are, sort of bearing the economic, but I'm quite certain we're going to move into gray, and we'll be in gray for a number of weeks.
No, I get there's no crystal ball, just maybe knowing what you understand about the gray zones, that I wouldn't be breaking any rules as well, is more the concern that I'm also looking at. We wish we had tea leaves that could clarify all of this, but I'm not privy to what the gray now is modified to as clearly. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't, we've got big disclaimers, no gathering of groups and things like that. So that's fantastic. I'll take that advice.
I'll defer also to Latchman, because I'm sure he wants to say something here as well.
Yeah, through the chair, Jennifer, I'm happy to review a plan if you have something put together around the event, of who it's being included, what messaging you're providing to families around visiting the different businesses to participate in that virtual Easter egg hunt. I'm happy to look at your plan and provide comments back to you. I'll ask that you email it to me or to our PHS COVID-19 inbox, and we'll get some comments back to you. If you can let us know what your timelines are for operationalizing the plan and messaging to the businesses that are participating in this event.
Perfect. I'll do that as soon as we get off this today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I see no other questions.
I think Rachel.
Rachel,
Yeah.
right there.
Sorry.
Yes, Rachel.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask one quick question with regards to clarification around the vaccines. I heard rumor that restaurants were not included in the phase 2, but now they are. And just wondered if there'd been a change on that.
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Rachel, a 32-page document about phase 2 prioritization came out last night. I haven't had a chance to read it. I suspect that restaurant staff are not going to be part of phase 2 for a number of reasons, but let us look at that, and we'll see if there's some provincial movement, because the document just seems to be a more wordy version of some, what are called placemats, these visual representations of who's included in phase 2 as a priority population for vaccination. So let us look at that, and we'll get back to you through you to and Julia to the to this sort of committee. If the changes in the 32-page document are different from what we understand the priority groups for phase 2 are going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Dr. Sider and Mr. Nandu, for your update. The good news was at the beginning when you said that the most people that are affected now are not in our nursing home, which is so important. I really think that's amazing. And but I wanted to ask you a quick question. When somebody gets tested for COVID-19, is it a different test that tells you the variant, or is it the same test?
Great question, Madam Chair. What is happening now is that if you go to a testing and assessment center and you're found to have COVID, that PCR test that is positive, that sample gets sent to the provincial public health labs, and that positive sample then gets further screened. There's 2 mutations that they look for that determine if it's one of the variants. So the initial test, if you go up to the testing and assessment, one of the testing or assessment centers, they won't know if it's a variant at that point in time. But usually within 24 to 48 hours, we have further information from sending those positive swabs to the provincial public health lab for screening for one of the mutations, the variants of concern. We usually find out at that point in time if it's positive or not as a variant of concern.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that the variant you were saying has increased. What's happening to the variant that we used to have? Is it disappearing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Why? Like I say, the best thing I can explain is the new variants are bullies. They just push out. They have a competitive advantage, and so they eventually. Yes, I mean basically what we call the classic COVID becomes less and less common, and it disappears, and it is replaced by this more transmissible variant. Exactly why that happens is a great question, but the reality is, if you look at a country or a nation such as the United Kingdom, over the last several months, basically they have no further circulation of the earlier classic strain of the COVID virus. It's virtually all the UK strain, with a couple of other variants as well from South Africa and Brazil.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Sider? I see none. So
I think Councillor Tracy has a question.
Oh, Tracy, sorry. Tracy?
Oh, hi, good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sider, for the explanation and the advance warning. It's appreciated. I just had a very specific technical question about safety plans. I've had some businesses report that some bylaw officers are been into the businesses, and we've provided them all the links that we've been given for the Ontario Safety Plan template, and they were advised that the template had changed and they were outdated, but we've looked it over, and it's the one I checked with Rachel. I'm just wondering if there was a miscommunication, or did a safety plan change and where Rachel has not been notified or we've not been notified. I'm using exactly that exact link. And it's really odd as well, a side comment, that the City of Hamilton COVID pages don't have that link when I'm looking up safety plans. It might be helpful to have that, but I'm using that exact link. So your bylaw officers in Stony Creek are saying that it's changed. Is that just a miscommunication? Thankfully, they weren't fined.
Through you, Madam Chair. Latchman, have you got any intelligence on that?
Thanks, Dr. Sutter. Through you, Chair. I will have to take this back, Tracy, and get an answer for you, because I'm not aware of any changes to the provincial template of the workplace safety plan. So I'll follow up with bylaw to see if there's an update on that, to understand what it is the bylaw officers are asking for and where that misinterpretation might be coming from. We do have some resources on our webpage around workplace safety plans and support for businesses to develop their safety plans. And I'll also make sure that the provincial link that I've pasted in the chat there is also updated on our webpage if it's not there as yet.
Thank you, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I need a mover and a seconder to receive the staff presentation. And thank you again, Dr. Sider and Latchman Nandu.
Moved by
Okay.
Rachel, seconded by Tracy.
Okay, and it's, nobody opposes it, so it's carried. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Bye,
Okay,
folks.
thank you. We're gonna go to discussion on it. Ontario Business
Oh,
Improvement Area
just-
Association.
Just through the chair, we'll just probably go back maybe to the film office
Are they
update.
there?
I
Okay,
believe so. Thank you.
okay. We will go back to film office update. Can I have Kimberly? And
Yes.
Senior Manager and Sarah Rock. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for your patience this morning. I apologize, had some connectivity issues just as we were getting started, which I think is like the modern day version of you show up to a meeting in your underwear, like the nightmare, you know? So thank you for bearing with me as I frantically reconnected. I thought it might be good to just start with a very kind of brief update about what's going on with the industry, and then I'm happy to answer your questions and take the discussion into any specific concerns or questions that you want to get into. So just very briefly, just to kind of recap for 2020, you know, as with all businesses, the industry was greatly affected by the pandemic. Filming was shut down from about mid-March 2020 and resumed in mid-July, with a kind of a trickle of productions at the beginning, followed by a huge surge in demand in the late summer and fall. We did have very good numbers at the end for 2020. Film did bounce back very strongly. We ended up with 113 productions that filmed in Hamilton. So that's down about 20% off 2019. And the spend was still very high. So productions reported spending $53 million in Hamilton, which is down from about $60 million in 2019. So 10% reduction despite losing, 4 months of the year. So that's all very encouraging and just kind of helping to point to a very strong return of the industry, which we're seeing through Q1. We're very much on track to set a record so far this year, looking at our numbers in terms of the volume of requests that we're receiving. And we are seeing from productions, they're reporting high spends. They're talking to us about what they're spending in the community, and it's all very encouraging. So for 2020, just kind of for interest's sake, some highlights, some series that you might recognize that filmed here. Handmaid's Tale, which is about to come out, had many filming locations in Hamilton. The Apple TV series C season 2, starring Jason Momoa. A Guillermo del Toro film called Nightmare Alley, starring Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, among others. The Netflix superhero series Titans filmed, a large Disney feature, I don't have to tell Susie, called Sneakerella, filmed here. Silence of the Lambs spin-off called Clarice, which I believe is going to be on CBS. And then our sort of perennial Canadian favorites, Murdoch Mysteries and Frankie Drake and Good Witch, that are here season after season, as well as many, many more, many movies of the week, many, series and documentaries, and a wide variety. So just again, kind of looking ahead to the rest of 2021, just wanted to give a quick update about how we actually forecast the demand, which might not be obvious, is that we do work very closely with the Provincial Film Commission. So the Ontario Film Commission is housed within Ontario Creates, which is an arm's length agency to the Ministry of Tourism and Sport and Heritage and Culture Industries. And the way it works is that the Film Commission actually has staff in LA and contacts who work with producers, both locally and overseas, and they attract those productions to come to Ontario. And they're putting forward Hamilton as an option when they're doing that. So all of the businesses that register with the Ontario Locations Library that express an interest in hosting filming and post up pictures of their business are included in image packages that are sent to the productions that bring them to Ontario to film and bring them to Hamilton to film. And we as staff have a weekly meeting with the Film Commission where we hear about projects that are scouting in the province. And then that's also an opportunity for us to jump in and recommend particular locations or looks in Hamilton or why we'd be a good fit for the series. And then once the production has sort of decided that they're coming here, we have scouts who contact us who are looking at very specific, houses or stores or so on, and might need a little bit of advice. So this is where it's really helpful, just kind of moving into opportunities. If you know of any businesses, particularly in light of the pandemic and what we've just heard about shutdowns, with filming so far, the provincial regulations have allowed filming to continue regardless of what color we're in, regardless of what stage, even when there's a stay-at-home order. So there is an opportunity for some businesses who might have to shut down to their regular business to potentially host filming. There's potentially an opportunity where some businesses that may not have been interested in the long term and don't have a listing in the provincial database might be interested in the short term. And so we would encourage that if that's the case, that you reach out to us or have the businesses reach out to us and let us know, because there is that kind of all those points along the chain that I mentioned where there's opportunities for us to help with scouting and steer directions towards businesses that are interested in hosting filming. We're also obviously very actively, we're very keenly aware that businesses are trying to recover. We are very actively trying to keep those productions off of the street, off of the main streets and parking in lots so that they're not taking up all of the metered parking in front of shops. So we're very, very interested in hearing from any businesses that have parking lots that might be interested in having some film parking. Even a small parking lot, people might think, I don't have the space for all those trucks and semis. Even small parking lots where equipment could be positioned or tents could be put up to try to kind of keep things out of the way. Definitely something we would be interested in. Mentioned in my overview about how things have kind of changed in the industry in light of the pandemic. And one major change that we're seeing is that productions are just taking up a lot more space. So they have the reason why they've been able to continue despite restrictions on opening and so on is because of the very, very robust testing that's being done and the very, very robust safety measures. Once you have a crew in place, they're testing every couple of days. They're checking in with a medic every single day, and it's a very sort of closed circle. So we are seeing, medical tents being set up where we wouldn't have seen that before. We're seeing a lot more spaces being rented out for holding background performers, for doing hair and makeup, and so on. So we're seeing it as a positive thing. We're seeing where in the past, perhaps, one business would have been the filming location and, perhaps one other business was for background and holding. We're seeing a lot more opportunities for rentals being spread out because they're just needing to rent more spaces and set up more things. So again, anywhere inside, outside, anyone who's interested in sort of taking part in that and having some of that revenue coming in the short term, we would love to hear it and be able to help connect productions with businesses who are interested in getting that. And just sort of moving on, sorry, just kind of taking a quick look at my presentation. Again, I'll keep it brief. I'm just going to kind of quickly point out ways to help, ways we can help if there is an issue or concern with filming. And then I'm sure there are specific, questions and concerns that we can get into, but just sort of high level, just to reiterate and explain how things work on a set. So the location manager is the person who's in charge of liaising with the neighborhood. So that's who's going to be liaising directly with yourselves and with our office. And they're responsible for the behavior of all the crew and, where people are parked. Ultimately, the buck kind of stops with them to manage all of that. So we really encourage, if there's ever an issue, please call us, let us know. We can liaise with the location manager, but also to please feel empowered to connect directly with the location manager, particularly if it's after hours and we're not available. It's always easier to resolve a problem as it's happening than to come back a couple of days after the fact and say you shouldn't have done that. So it's much better always if we can stop it in the moment and just say, this needs to change. This isn't working. This can't be happening. This needs to be moved, or this needs to be done differently. And as I say, film office staff, we're always here. We're happy to help and we're happy to liaise. Anything that's sort of happening, if you can't get a hold of someone right away, we always encourage you to contact the location manager. We will have connected them with you ahead of time and given you their contact details. If for some reason you're seeing activity and you haven't had a notification, then you can approach anyone with a walkie-talkie on the set and ask to speak to the location manager. And again, just let us know and we can follow up. working a bit backwards, I should have started with this. I just wanted to introduce my colleague Sarah Rock is here on the call. So hi, Sarah. So it's Sarah, myself, and Jen Paquette-Smith in the film office. I think all of you know Sarah from the amazing work she's doing with Julia on the patios. And so you know how enthusiastic she is about wanting to support those merchants. And you know, it's a sentiment that all of us share. So we really do want to hear from you. If there's a problem, if there's a concern, if there's a question, we're here to help. And so please feel free to call us anytime with anything you want to go over with regards to film. And in that vein, I'll maybe open it up if there's anything that you would like to chat about this morning, and we can try to answer specific questions.
Thank you, Kimberly. And is there any questions from the committee? Okay, Tracy?
Good morning, and thank you, Kimberly. Nice to meet you. Sarah, you rock with patios. Just a comment, and I'm hoping it's resolved already. But so I'm new at the table here. I've been around a few years, and I work in Westdale and Stony Creek BIAs, and it's kind of odd that the first time I can recall that I have on record that I ever got notified about a film coming to Westdale or Stony Creek was just a recent one that happened earlier in the month, a couple weeks ago, which was very appreciative. And I hope that is going to be the standard, because I just want to share a quick story of what happened last October when a big film came to Westdale. And we have a bunch of outdoor dining districts that Sarah's helped us with. And you know, some guy in our coffee shop happened to mention to the locations guy as he was doing his final planning about the BIA setting up the tents in the next day. And he had no idea, and they were about to film. So it was quite an ordeal behind the scenes logistically to change everybody. Our guys that help us out, our renovations guys, they had switched all their schedules, switched all their deliveries. The tent guys moved their orders. All these people were in play. And on top of that, my husband was getting surgery that the morning that these guys, that we'd have to like put it all back together. So it was not a fun day, and it was anyway, I won't go into details. Anyways, I had to pack up a film set and set up a whole slew of patios in about 5 hours. That really shouldn't have happened. And yeah, it was a lot of crazy work and crazy times, all because we weren't notified of film coming. So I appreciate that Sarah had contacted us for this latest film. Everything went smoothly. We were able to avoid many issues because it's always easiest the locations guys contact us. So I hope that this is going to be the new standard. Many times these films show up and I just happen to find them, or one of my businesses just happened to ask a question because they're not quite sure what's going on. So it's extremely appreciative. It avoids many logistical problems, many issues in the street, number of things. And I just hope that this is going to be the new standard, that the first time somebody comes in and wants to film in a BIA area, that Sarah or somebody in your office immediately connects the locations manager via email with the BIA. And I hope that is the normal standard now, because it avoids many issues. Anyways, that's all. I'm just wondering if that is the new standard.
Yes, that's always been the standard. So I'm a little bit nervous now because I know I've personally sent you a lot of notification emails over the years. So I'm sort of given to think that perhaps I have the wrong information in my contacts, as well as that perhaps the location managers were misleading me when I didn't hear back and confirm that they had connected with you. that sounds like perhaps that wasn't the case. So I'm very sorry to hear that. That is very disappointing. We have had, as you know, filming in Westdale for many years, and we've always sent that notification email to yourself and the production. So I'm not sure what might have been happening there, but definitely that is the process. Whenever we become aware of filming filming in the BIA, we send an introductory email to yourself and the location manager to connect you directly. And then that provides an opportunity for the location manager to sort of go over the plans with you, which we encourage them to do, for you to give any feedback to us or to them to say, you know, this really, this particular plan doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z, and let's tweak it a little bit. You know, it's an opportunity, obviously, to speak to the location manager about a donation, to request a donation for the BIA. So we do always have that as part of our process. Now, I can kind of give the caveat that, you know, of course, obviously, there's the odd time that we just make a mistake and aren't aware or miss that a property is within the BIA. Please call us on it if that happens. It's never intentional. We try to get the notification out every time. The other caveat I would say is if we just don't know. So sometimes productions just haven't worked through us the way they should. Most often when that's the case, it's because they are primarily on one merchant's property. So I would say, you know, I would encourage, it's helpful if you can talk to all your members and have them let you know as soon as they're being approached about filming. It just kind of looking at the flow of how things go. So the production doesn't sort of contact the film office and we say, go film in the BIA. They typically contact a merchant first, or they have a look that they're interested in the BIA, and then they let us know, you know, we're filming at such and such a place and it falls within the BIA. So that's where we sort of jump in and say, great, connect you via email, sort of follow up and look at how we can minimize impacts to the rest of the businesses. But there is, you know, typically it is starting with an initial conversation with whichever the merchant is that they want to film at. So that's just another thing I would sort of recommend, is to just, you know, make sure that those merchants are letting you know as well when they're going to host filming, so that we're kind of trying to get it on all angles. Like, you know, we keep hammering the message home to the location managers to contact you. We keep connecting them with you directly. And then if we have the support of the merchants as well to notify you, that would help as well. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, Tracy.
Sorry, yeah, sorry if I can just follow up. Yeah, I appreciate that. So sometimes I get a call from a locations guy that said, oh yeah, film office told me to call you. But I just hope that it's going to be standard that there's an email from the film office with the locations manager and the BIA. I know other BIAs, I don't know if anybody's going to speak up, but other BIAs have had no communication and films are showing up. And yeah, I've worked with films for years and years. And sometimes the business owners, they don't know, they're just being scouted, they don't know. But it's really helpful when locations guys come in, they want to park all these trucks. It's even more helpful. I have worked with other municipalities where the BIA actually, you know, kind of signs off on the plan. That would even be helpful if we could even touch base with you and say, okay, we worked with the locations crew, and they're going to be here for a week or two, and we've worked out all where they could park and all this stuff, because there are many things that might seem easy on your end that sure just give up all these parking spots, but sometimes they take more and logistically. But if going forward, we're going to get an email with a CC from the locations manager, that is the best way. And I hope that that's going to be the new norm, because I think other people may comment that we have felt that has not been the norm. So it was great this last production. Everything went smoothly. I was able to iron out things before any issues could happen. So very helpful. And I hope that's the new norm. And I hope even maybe we might even take it a step further and say, could you touch base back with the BIA before issuing permits? And it's helpful to have the permits. I know this last film, Julia sent me the permit, which is fabulous to have, because when I had issues on the scene on Saturday night at midnight, or, you know, Monday after 5, when you guys aren't around, which is fine, but having the permit is extremely helpful as well.
Yes. So as I say, that has been our process for many years and will continue to be the email connection. Again, I'm very, very sorry. I know I've personally sent many emails to Westdale BIA, so I will check with Sarah. And I obviously have the wrong information, and we'll make sure that that's happening. And again, I apologize for any time anyone's been missed. We will continue with that process. it's not really operationally feasible to have multiple checkpoints that we're kind of initiating, but we're always here. So if you are connecting with a production, and then you have feedback, and you're sort of saying, okay, this is, you know, we have this concern about what they're asking to do, please call us. We take that, you know, feedback into account, and we always try to work with you. So we never sort of just say, yeah, take all the parking and kind of throw our hands up, and that's not the approach we take whatsoever. We're very cognizant of how the filming impacts the merchants, and we want to make sure that there is the support of the BIA. So we are a little bit limited just by operational pressures in terms of how much volume we're dealing with, and how quick the turnaround times are, to be proactively doing a lot of follow-up touch points. But if you can please contact us anytime you have a concern or you want to talk about the footprint, if you're triggering it, then absolutely, we'll make ourselves available. We'll take that feedback into concern, and we'll try to kind of narrow down the footprint. You know, there's things we do. We hear back from the BIA, you know, that's the day we have our farmers market, or that's really close to this event, or you might not know this, Kim, but such and such a business does their deliveries from there. And our attitude is always, thank you for letting us know, and let's change things, and let's fix it, and what would work better. So we always want to hear that feedback from you.
Okay, thank you. I think it was Jennifer. Jennifer, you're next.
Thank you very much. Hello and good morning.
Hello.
A couple of questions I have here. What is your lead out time? How early do you normally hear from them? A week before they start working? 2 weeks? How much further it is? And then I'll let you answer that, and then I can go to my next.
We don't allow them to work if, like, we won't issue a permit if it's less than 3 days, but we often get asked with less than 3 days notice. You know, the standard is 5 days of notice for filming within a BIA. So if it's less than that, we're sort of putting it to you in the merchant. So if they're asking, it's because one of your merchants wants the filming. So we're a little bit between a rock and a hard place, and say, okay, we don't want to put bureaucracy into place and stop someone from making some money. At the same time, we want to make sure that everyone's supportive of this and has been notified and understands what's happening. So in those cases, we might kind of have a conversation and say, look, Jennifer, they're asking, it's 3 days from now. What do you think? Like, do you want us to sort of hold them off so there can be more notice? You know, how do you want to proceed? But unfortunately, it is very tight. Usually, the way the industry works, particularly with streaming, the amount of streaming series that are filming and everything, it's a very, very kind of quick production schedule, and the amount of lead time they have between getting a script and actually going to camera can be very, very short. So as much notice as we have, we give it. I would say on average, it's about a week.
Okay. So if I can work on the opposite end, I don't know if you already have it, but if we could maybe work on something, because it's a communication I'd like to give back to my members, that I've been working on them for them to understand that if someone's come to them, I can maybe help it benefit the BIA and other members versus working in their own isolation. Yay, I'm getting this, or this is happening there. But if there was a tip sheet, because it also works on the opposite, I did have come in that had a terrible experience. It was an unregulated, they hadn't gone through the film office. So they hadn't notified me. Obviously, you guys hadn't notified me because you didn't know what was happening. I don't want to say it destroyed, but they had damage. Like, it was not a good experience. And I'd love to put a tip sheet out so that when they get approached, one of the first things they do is, you know, give me a shout, shoot an email, because there's so many checks and balances we can put in. So I don't know if you have something, because I think that would be helpful for me to help solicit that response that I'm able to guide them through, so that I can hear, because they know sooner than you would know that someone's scouting the area. Because I did have someone recently, or I think it was Jennifer I was working with, that they were looking, they thought a location was going to work, but then the business and the property owner didn't want them on the property. So there was some issue that had gone on, and that's going to impact some longer impact with sort of where they've taken a stance. So yeah, I would have loved to have been there a little sooner, to A, offer another solution, or B, to maybe made that smooth that over. So if this is something we can take offline, and happy to share with the rest of the BIA members once we have it, but that kind of a, tip sheet, what do you do if someone's contacted and why? Just that I get into a quick little graphic, but it makes it easier for me when I'm communicating versus not just me teaching them coming from the film office. So
Yeah, absolutely. We can put something together. We do have something on our website that's for residents who've been approached about filming that just has general tips like make sure that the production has insurance and, ask about this and ask about that. So I'm wondering if we can maybe repurpose that with some of the points that are more relevant to business owners and then sort of add on like very much in bold right at the top, like, you've been approached for filming, first things first. Contact your BIA lead, let them know, contact the film office, let us know. And then, we can kind of build it out with some additional, just general, here's what you'd want to consider. It's a little bit of kind of buyer beware. So, here's how to empower yourself to negotiate a contract for use of your location.
Quick, I don't want to make work for all of us, but something simple, because then when sometimes, a member's neighbor business is having it, sometimes it's on the sidewalk. So they all know how they can say, they don't have to just say, well, they're doing it. And now it's, well, then speak up. Here's your opportunity. Reach out to me. You may hear about it before I do, that we can make everybody happy about it versus it just kind of showing up and ta-da.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And we can definitely do that for sure. For sure. We can follow up offline and get something together.
Thank you, and thank Kimberly and Rock Sarah. Sarah, is your first name Sarah Rock? The name or the other way
My
around?
first name is Sarah. My last name
Yes.
is Rock. I don't know why it always puts my last name first. I've given up trying to change it.
Kind of thought so. Thank you. Thank you again. And we need a mover and a seconder.
Oh, I wanted to say something.
Oh, someone else? Okay, Susie, sorry about that.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead, Susie.
I just wanted to reiterate a conversation, well, a couple conversations Kim and I have had over the last months. I guess the Disney shoot that I had was a pretty good learning experience for all of us. So what I'd like to see is, yes, like a tip sheet that we can have, the businesses can have, so we know what questions to be asking when these bigger productions come in. Because what I was told from the production company was very different than what it ended up being, and wish I had sort of been tipped off to that. And then I think the one thing I would like to see, and Kim's aware of this, is a tiered approach. So it's a large production highlighted in pink, medium highlighted in yellow, like something like that. So when the emails come across our table, we are aware of the large severity of what the film could be. I feel like RBI has become a hotspot now for filming, and that's great. But a lot of the times, I don't know if this is going to be a quick, tiny production or if it's a large one. It also affects what we ask for donations and things like that. So I think we've all talked about it around the table, but I do think even just doing something like that would be really helpful for us. And I just wanted to say that would really be a great thing for us to know what's coming in and how big they are, because we're getting 1-day shoots and then we got a 2-month shoot. So, but the wording was all the same. It doesn't come across saying it's Disney, it's under some other production name. So, and then I would also just encourage too, having done this for so long, I mean, the film office has always been great. We work with them all the time closely. So if you have specific needs within your BIA, whether you don't want parking lots being taken up in certain areas or certain parts of the area affected, Kim's been great, and Julia was beforehand as well, and just working with us independently to sort of work around what our needs are. So I would encourage all of you to do the same. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Susie. I really appreciate that. Of course, that's what we're aiming to do, is just work with you and hear you and try to adjust. It's very fluid. It's really, really, Julia will laugh because we used to work together on film, and when she was teaching me, I would always get really frustrated and say, but why can't they just always do X, Y, or Z and we can manage it more easily? And she would say to me, it's just not cookie cutter. And I'd get, I'd kind of give it back to her, but I'm gonna say the same words and say it's just not a cookie cutter kind of situation, and it's so difficult because it is so different every time. But I did sort of think a lot about the conversations that Susie and I had offline, and we're working at kind of trying to pilot a notification template that might work a little bit better. So it's something that I'm glad you raised, because I had intended to share with all of you today. I was hoping we would have the chance. Is we've sort of, Sarah and Jen and I have sort of had some conversations, and I've done some scans, checked in with some colleagues in other jurisdictions to sort of see if there's anything helpful that they're using. And I think we have an idea for notification that we'd like to sort of test out that incorporates some of what you're talking about, where it's highlighted right in the subject line, like, hey, this is, this sounds like it's going to be a very large production, or the ask is very kind of big in scope, and can include in the notification to say, we might want to sit down and have a meeting about this ahead of time, versus flagging, this seems to be a very sort of minor request that shouldn't be any kind of issue. So to kind of help set the tone and help you judge, like, what are you getting in for? And then what we'd like to sort of try to put together in the coming months is a standard sort of template that location managers can fill out for us that helps draw out the impacts. So it's not so much on you to have a conversation with them to know what kind of questions to ask to get a sense of the impacts, so that we're kind of asking those questions up front, saying, please outline what your parking is going to look like. Please outline, whether or not you're going to have anything going on in the sidewalk, which merchants are affected, what stretch of road, questions like this to try to make it a little bit more clear. We're trying to balance, because I know everyone's style is different, and some people just kind of prefer to talk to the location manager and run with it and don't necessarily want or need us to be that involved. But we're, again, like we're kind of trying to test out what's going to work the best. I am hearing you about the notification and how crucial it is, and the gaps that there have been with it over the years. So we're really kind of just trying different things out to try and address that. So I hope over the next few months, as we sort of pilot a few things and kind of see what works, that you'll all give your feedback and help guide us on that and let us know what's working for you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Again, thank you, Kimberly and Sarah. I need a mover and a seconder, please.
Rachel and Susie.
Thank you. And nobody opposes, so it's passed. We're going to move on to, have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Discussion item 10.1, Ontario Business Improvement Area Association Conference 2021. Carrie, would you like to provide an update?
Sure. So good morning. So we're moving forward with conference in September still. It's going to be based on where we are at with public health measures, on whether how much will be virtual and how much will be in person. We're probably going to see a lot more planning happen for that in May. But you will receive from OBIA tomorrow a list, a series of virtual sessions that will be happening April 21st, 28th, May 5th, and May 12th that are really great. They're it's low cost. If you have 4 of them, it's $200, that have like reimagining Main Streets, activating public spaces. And then one of the ones we're going to be filming from the generator and combining it to do a Join Us in September video. That highlights all of our BIAs. So it'll just be kind of like a welcome to Hamilton, kind of as a teaser for September. So that's all for me.
That's it. Thank you, Carrie. Any questions? I don't see any, and we need a mover and a seconder.
Lisa and Susan.
Thank you. And nobody opposes, so we'll move on to 13, general information and other business. And this is a verbal update from Julia Davis. Julia, can you give us the update, please? And we want to see your smiling face.
Morning, everyone. I hope that my technology cooperates today. I will go quickly, but it's great to see everyone. Just a reminder that our next meeting is, I believe, going to be on April 13th, so just a few weeks from now. So if you have anything for that agenda, please advise. A few other things that I wanted to touch on are the shop local funding, which was the motion that I discussed in our last two meetings from council as per the mayor's task force on economic recovery. Each BIA will receive $10,000 in 2021 to support initiatives that you are running. So just a reminder to connect with me, either to submit a written proposal with a mock budget, and we can get you that funding. But if anybody has ideas or wants to have a conversation, please reach out anytime. I'm happy to work one-on-one with all of you to bring that to fruition. But as we are looking at the end of March, it's just a couple of months until we want those proposals submitted. So I didn't want to forget to mention that. Also, last week, I sent everybody their 2021 levy list that we have on file. Please review the list of properties that was sent to you. And if there are any discrepancies, whether properties have been omitted or an extra property has been added, please let us know. So you could email myself and Maria DeSanto, who is a manager of taxation, letting us know what the errors are, or just for clarification. But we do want to hear back from you by April 16th. If we don't hear back from you by April 16th, we will just take the list as is. So if your list is fine, you do not have to respond to us, but I did want to make sure that I reminded everyone of that. We chatted about this a little bit offline before the meeting, but I just wanted to chat about reports. So with respect to changes to your boards or budgetary changes, and in some cases, approval for expenses at these meetings, we push those through as quickly as possible. If I'm writing the report, we're looking at about an 8-week lead time with our reporting cycles right now. So just keeping that in mind, if you're going through some board changes and folks have resigned and you need to replace them, we are looking at about 8 weeks. I can try to push it down to 6, but it is challenging. So I did want to remind everybody of those turnaround times for revisions to your boards. I also sent everybody yesterday information on a webinar that Tourism Hamilton is working with the Ontario by Bike Network to put on April 27th. This is specific on welcoming cyclists to Hamilton. So it's a dedicated webinar for our community and how we can engage better in the Ontario by Bike Network, which is a really great opportunity and a really a massive niche in the tourism sector that is growing. So please, I encourage everybody to register for that webinar, but also if you could share it in your newsletters. There may be businesses within your BIAs who could take advantage and join the network to support cyclists. So I wanted to remind everyone of that. Audits. So audits are well underway. I was actually working with KPMG this morning before the sun came up to get them some information. So anybody who is in the June cycle of audits, hopefully all of your information has been submitted. It was due 2 weeks ago to accounting services. I think we were pretty good. And then the September audits, we're looking at end of May. If you need anything from me or any way we can help you, let me know. And also, as you're working with KPMG, any feedback that you have, I think we have 2 auditors working on our files this year. So Gary will be returning, who worked last year and is familiar with our BIAs, but we may have somebody who's not. Any way we can help, support, or if you could provide feedback, that's really helpful as we work with our accounting services team. So the fun of audits has begun for this year. Just a couple more things that I wanted to touch on. Again, the Outdoor Dining Districts program is open. I think at least half of the BIAs have had at least one business within their area submit. Waterdown is leading the way with the most applications, so it's not a competition, but thank you, Susan, for pushing that with your members. We've already received almost 90 applications under the municipal, private property, and on-street structure stream. Actually have a few that were received after hours last night. So a few of you will be getting emails from me today, just notifying you of those within your areas. As was mentioned in the conversation with public health, the rules have changed in our colored system. And so if we do roll back to gray zone, outdoor dining is permitted now. Would it be helpful to pull that verbiage and send it to you guys? I'm looking for nods or, okay, so let me get that together. That just did happen on Friday and is really exciting. Both red zone and gray zone changed. So it does provide that bit of relief for our restaurateurs specifically. I will pull that together and send it out to the group, and then we can have a correspondence on the information. I don't know the exact numbers in the gray zone or red zone offhand. It's just escaping me, but I'll make sure that gets sent to you this morning. The other 2 points that I wanted to make is a reminder that the placemaking pilot program, it's a granting program for placemaking initiatives offered through Tourism Hamilton, Tourism and Culture. The applications are open and the last day to submit those is April 9th at 4:30 p.m. So if you're interested in the placemaking grants and you haven't submitted, you can definitely apply for those. I will share the link again and I can connect you with the program coordinator, Sarah, who is fantastic to work with. But as that is creeping up on us as for a deadline, and the deadline is before our next meeting, I wanted to make sure I highlighted that. And then finally, a reminder that last month we launched the COVID Concierge initiative through the Hamilton Business Center. This is pulls together information from our City of Hamilton coronavirus sites, very business specific, the business facilitation information, and all the recovery information in terms of granting, what's allowed, the framework, just helping businesses. It's a really easy to use website, but the most important thing is we actually have dedicated staff manning the phone lines from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. It's specific to businesses. So if any of your businesses have questions, they can reach out anytime during those business hours and they will actually get one of our staff to speak to. May even be me, who knows? But we're happy to help and want to continue to push that and promote it for our business community. So those are some of my very quick updates for this week. It's great to see everyone. And again, if you have anything for our next meeting, please advise. We will have Tourism Hamilton attending to provide an update and work with this group. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, please let me know in the next week or so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julia, for the update. And I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to receive Julia's update. Thank you.
So Christina and Rachel.
Great. Thank you. And I see nobody opposes and it's passed. We're going to now go to statements by members. And we're going to go alphabetically. We're going to start with Jennifer, Matern, and Castor BIA.
Great. I just in the middle of between wrapping, we've wrapped up and got the audit in, and still, I would say, in planning stages. I think we've had a board meeting last night where we were able to get all of the direction for our marketing and our events. So I'm going to be moving forward in planning stages with that. And we're very close to knowing what we're going to be doing with our farmers market. So we should be announcing that on April 1st, which will not be an April Fool's joke. So we'll have that out shortly.
Thank you, Jennifer. We're going to go to Rachel now, please.
Thank you. We've been a lot of planning for sure for stuff, which is not always easy through COVID, as we all know. But we're excited. We're doing 2 boulevard depaves this spring. So that will really help to beautify the street. We are also organizing a community consultation meeting because we heard a rumor that Barton is up for revitalization of their streetscape, which is super exciting for me because it's something we've been pushing for like ever, it feels like. So it's going to be a long ways off, but at least we're at the table. So that's exciting. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you. We will go to Christine. Christina, please.
So on Concession Street as well, we are doing a lot of planning for the year. We actually have this year for Sidewalk Sounds, we're going to be doing a hybrid. So for sure, we're going to be streaming like we did last summer online digital performances. We have a fantastic music lineup this year. And when and if we're able to complement that with some live performances, we will, but obviously that will be determined on where we are with the restrictions. We've started some spring cleanup, so we've gotten rid of our winter banners, our winter inserts. We're just kind of doing a refresh. And then as well, we're partnering with Beautiful Alleys on April the 17th for a community cleanup. So that's going to be happening. And as well, something interesting, our board is going to be taking, and I'm actually going to be jumping onto a training session right after this meeting, a racial sensitivity training course, specifically for our leadership right now. And depending, I'm going to be attending it as well. Depending on kind of how good it is, we may open it up to the rest of our membership, but just in the interest of diversity and inclusion and making sure unconscious bias, we're not saying or doing the wrong things. We're excited to be a part, to offer this to our board for now and hopefully our membership at some point.
Thank you, Christina. We're going to go to Carrie now. Carrie Jarvis? Jarvie, downtown.
That's okay. So we are looking forward to April 1st. We have quite a few members that take advantage of our grant program that allows for $1,500 contribution towards their pop-up patios. We have King William will be closed again between James and Houston for a super duper patio. The restaurants will be managing it themselves this year, so that's going to be great to see. We have had new businesses open, Sankofa Dining on Jackson. We have Spirit Leaf Cannabis and True to Roots Caribbean on James. And we are really excited because we have a lot of really self-guided walking tours that will start in April and May that will really help to, that are really fun and really interesting historical walking tours. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Carrie. Lisa Anderson, please.
Good morning. Thank you. So in Dallas, it's so hard to plan when even all the way into green, you're only allowed crowds of 100. And with the gray looming over our heads. But so we're decorating, we're creating videos with the generator and putting that on our social media. We'll be painting windows starting today with spring and Easter themes. I have a bougie cupcake cafe opening very soon. Hopefully they get, I'm looking forward to that, and a cupcake and a coffee. And that's about it, you know, planning options for outdoor dining districts and just keeping on top of our members, seeing how they're doing, chatting with them, and waiting for nicer weather. That's all.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to go to Susie now, please.
Not too much to report. We are planning our new rebrand launch for May 1st. So we'll see how that goes with all of this, but that is the plan. We are working on an exciting project for later in the year that I just can't announce yet because we're just waiting on some final approvals. We've hired The Feed, which is a video production company within our own boundaries, to do some videos for us this year. So we're excited about that, and our marketing plan's coming along, but lots of stuff going on behind the scenes right now that should be unveiled very soon.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Heidi. Is Heidi here?
I think we're all the way down to Susan, Counselor.
Oh, Susan, sorry, I didn't, okay.
No, that's okay.
Susan?
Thank you. Yeah, so we did launch, Jennifer, our egg hunt last weekend. We had great weather for it. It's going to run for 16 days, and it's encouraging people to get outside and look in business windows so they don't have to go into the businesses. So we felt that that would be safe regardless of where we are. So the ballots and the clues are out there, and we had a lot of people participating because it was such a great weekend. We are in the preliminary stages with an RFP to redesign our website. We're very excited about that since it crashes on a regular basis and we've MacGyvered it for a few years. We're also looking at launching a new banner program, and we're in the process of trying to get some artists called for submission for the designs that will go up on our banners. We are also looking at some of the programs that we'll do in the tail end of the year. We're kind of focusing on some of the hardest hit categories, specific promotions for the sectors that need the most help right now. We have a new bridal boutique that opened on Main Street. We have a new law firm that's opened. We have Campbell and Company, which is an interior design and home store. And we did lose Anna Perena, which was a custom design women's clothing store. So that was kind of sad, but I guess the good bad news is that our vacancy rate is still quite low. When we do have businesses closed, we seem to have people coming right in on behind them. So that store location has already been rented. I'm not sure what's coming in yet.
Thank you, and thank you, Susan. Last but not least is Tracy, Westdale.
Hi there. In Westdale, we're just doing patios, planning, and pivoting. And Stony Creek, same thing. It's a couple less patios, planning to see what we can do, and pivoting to what changes. That's about it.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, so we need a mover and a seconder to receive the statements by members.
Looks like Tracy and Rachel.
And there's nobody opposing that, so thank you and have a great weekend. What is today, Tuesday? Have a great week. It seems like a weekend. Okay, Christina?
Oh, sorry. Unmute myself. Sorry, I just had a really quick question for Julia. Julia, do you know, are we going to be having the BIA Awards of Excellence this year?
Great question. TBD. I think
Okay.
probably if we are, probably in the fall, once things kind of are a bit more normalized.
Okay.
Still celebrating the award winners from last year. So it would be a
Okay.
combo initiative. So we're in discussions on that, but I don't have any concrete information. I hope to have
Okay.
an update at the May meeting.
Okay, great. And then as well, my board changes that I submitted in January, I should be getting confirmation of that soon.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Sorry, the board changes that we submitted back in January, we should be getting that soon, I guess, the official.
Yes. So your report will be going to GIC tomorrow and then
Tomorrow.
ratified at council next week on the 31st. As
Okay.
well, I have reports, I believe, Waterdown, International Village, and I think Dundas, if memory serves me. But if
Okay.
anyone has emailed me and had a board change before last week, it will be going to the meeting tomorrow. So I will update you all accordingly.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to adjourn now, and I need a mover and a seconder.
Christina and Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. And I have to go to another meeting. Have a great week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye all. Thank you very much.